Hail the King. His role, of course, His Majesty will be, the Royal Majesty will be, he's in the country already, and of course we shall be covering that particular visitation of his for the tour here in the country to, of course, also address some of the historical injustices that the country has been subjected to during colonial times, and he will be also meeting the Muslim leaders at the coast as well. As soon as we have the pictures for you, we'll be giving you that live wall-to-wall, wire-to-wire coverage as and when they happen and as information come to hand. We're holding court this morning with Senator Dan Manzo. Also, we're joined by Dr. James Chikal and also Senator Tabitha Mutinda. Well, we didn't see Owen Bayer coming as well, but we continue with the conversation nonetheless. All right, we were just looking at what is happening so far with the Senate, with the rankings so far that was there from the survey of Infotrak, and how there has been issues as well on the metrics that they're using. That is what we're also learning this morning. But the question also of pending bills that has not been given much attention. We just talk about it, but no action so far or traction is happening. That seems to be also a tickling issue, because right now we're winding up the year and still that has never been addressed. And this is what I'm raising a special agitation and umbrage with the senators and members of parliament here to just tell us more on what is the way forward. I think before we took a short break, we want to circle back with you, Senator Tabitha.
Let me just start by saying that if you plan to fail, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. Mm-hmm. And this is simply because, as you know, through the county assembly, there's normally the budgeting process, which should also be guided in terms of the allocation that is in place in terms of the division of revenue, and at the same time, the on-source revenue. We are having high laxity in terms of the county governments collecting their own source revenue. Case example, you find that the issue of recurrent expenditure is very high. An example is Nairobi County. We are having about 1.2 billion on recurrent expenditure. We're also having the issue of the insurance that is needed to be paid, the other issues of the pensions and all that. And this then becomes a bigger, cost or expenditure. But the level at which the on-source revenue is collected is very minimal. Governors are really depending on the national government to be able to get funds. But you note that in the first financial year, 2022-2023, full disbursement was done. Come 2020, when we were coming to the end, now we are coming to the last, this financial year, the first disbursement was done and was done on time for the first time. But still, you find that it's so political in the sense that then governors will choose who do we pay, who do we not pay, It's sort of their own decision, which then affects, you find that the powers of the chief finance officer or the CEO, they are a bit tight because they are dependent on governors. And that's why we are keeping on having uncompleted and functional projects. A governor has come in, wants to start their own new project. This project was executed by the former governor. They don't want to finish it. They want to have their own project starting. And it affects the whole cycle, And so you find that then we are not achieving. If we don't watch out, devolution will not be able to achieve its course in the near future to come. As senators, we are doing our part. We are doing our oversight. There's a procedure. There's a legal process. And so we've taken up, we've summoned the governors. They've been able to explain. They've been able to put their issues across. But still, the bigger responsibilities lies with them. Especially on the animal called on-source revenue. If that is to be maximized in this county, then they can be able to manage their recurrent expenditure with that. And then for the national disbursement that they expect in terms of what is allocated to them on the division of revenue, then they can use that for development. They can use that to be able to achieve, of course, the manifesto that they put in place. You realize the members of parliament, through the CDF, there is no issue in terms of pending bills to the suppliers. The structure is well put, it's well executed, and it runs very well. And MACU, they also have staff, the same way the counties also have staff, and there are no issues. The issues that we are having with the county governments is that there's so much decision that is more politics. There is the responsibility of the control of budget in terms through the process of the IFMIS process, in terms of the payment procedures that take place. But still, when that is sent through the IFMIS, when monies are dispersed, but the suppliers who are paid end up being different suppliers, the issue still lies with the governorship process, and that's where we have a problem. Because back to the issue of InfoTrack and ranking, I would challenge them and tell them then, why don't you do ranking in terms of pending bills? Which county has no pending bill, which county has minimal, and which county is just extremely lagging behind? So that measure is through that. The other issue is also for the staff. The CEC's finance. Which areas, which counties have the best performing CECs, the ones who are able to ensure that their payments are timely payments, their budgets are as per what is within the funds that are available in terms of what they are going to collect, at the same time what they are expecting to be able to receive. It can't be that the county governments are only waiting for the national government to be able to execute and depend on that same source to be able to carry on their recurrent expenditure. Then we will not be moving. The other issue also is in regards to the issue of you find that there is so much competition sort of between now what the CECs in terms of the ministers and the MCAs. We are realizing there is so much was in the sense that MCAs want to play a role in terms of what they promise Kenyans during the election time, what they are supposed to deliver. But the minister, the CEC, who is in charge, is the one making a decision on which road should be on area A, B, or C. Unlike where the MCA is the one who represents the people. So in those particular wards, it affects them, it affects even on project implementation, at the same time, even on payments for the same projects that are being done in those counties, in those wards. And it ends up bringing slowness of the same projects because now there are issues. And we started raising that, and I think Manzo will agree with me, because we realized that these CCs are appointed to these positions by the MCAs. But at the moment, the MCAs are a bit powerless because the ministers take charge and decide what they need be done. Yet they are oversighted by the same MCA. It's quite a sad affair, but your challenge to us as the senators in terms of what are we doing. Dibal, there's a procedure. There's legislation that we need to follow. There's a constitution that we need to follow. There are standing orders that we need to follow. That is what we are following. And I can tell you, most of the senators, most of them, have tabled before the finance committee on getting to know the status of their pending bills. Elected senators are very much working to ensure that with that report, because you cannot just come from the blues and assume that they are pending bills. There is a procedure which is also approved by the auditors, which is tabled from the Office of the Control of Budget. Then it is brought to the committee. There is verification. If it is not satisfactory, then we go to the level of the governor, we go to the level of the auditor's office and all that procedure. So the senators are, all of them, despite they're in this committee for finance or not, they have the mandate and they are focusing on that very much.
All right. Let's just set it aside unless you want to get reactions on that. But I wanted just to come to the issue of the cost of living, because ODM, they're still adamant on this and they're standing firm on the cost of living. It has been a very critical issue on the agenda of the NDC so far. But the most consternating thing is we've crossed over to 1.5 trillion shilling mark, debt mark, as far as the World Bank study is concerned, which is almost eating away to the half of our budgetary allocation, which is 3 trillion shillings. And I'm given to understand right now also with the depreciation of the shilling, we have 70 billion shillings more that we have to pay on top of what we are paying. So that is where the vagaries of the precipitous falling of a shilling is actually subjecting us to. But why is ODM's far more the cost of living?
You know, you can see you are looking at me.
Of course, you're the ODM.
Because what is the essence of governance? What is the essence of having a country? What is the essence of having? It's people's lives. So if people are not able to live, what else do you need governance for? So all the things we do must result that at the family level, people feel better. All our efforts must be directed. So all these laws of economy and whatever it is, we really must bring them to that level. So what is happening now, in my view, I'm not an economist, but I'll say that the first thing we really have to look at is tax. It is good, we must raise money to run the country and to do developments. But even like in your own house, if you don't have enough, you must say, okay, I can't do all this. So if we now relook at the tax system, that means our revenue will go down. And we may go down and say, let's stagger our projects so that some of the money will actually go into people's livelihood instead of capital projects. But then there are debts that you say. One thing we must really do is also try as much as possible at this time to reduce the debts that we are taking. And there's something I've not heard even in the air a lot, other than trying very hard to make sure we pay debts. There are things like structural adjustments. When you borrow money, even in banks, when you borrow money, there's a time you can go to the bank and say, no, I can't pay you at this rate. Let's see how we make it longer. I've not heard that being talked about. Now, look at fuel. Fuel is another one. You touch fuel and electricity, energy, fuel, electricity, and so on. The cost of everything goes up. Now, on the cost of fuel now, if you look at petrol, we are at 217. 80 shillings per liter is actually taxes and levies. We may have to look at that and say, okay, it may reduce our revenue, but if we reduce it, it will have an effect on production and cost of everything. Look at electricity, energy. We are even talking that we want to now charge. People are even thinking we should charge electricity on a dollar basis. I mean, that would just kill us. So my view is everything we are doing, if it is not resulting in people feeling better in their homes, being able to put a meal on the table, being able to pay for their school fees for their kids, we are also trying to put subsidy on that. And you know, we're having problem at the university level. The kids that went to university, they went with a little money, more was to be paid, it has not been paid. The university have come with a very smart thing. The kids are admitted but not registered. So if you go into the electronic system, the kids are not in the system, but they're in the university. Already you hear they are now making noise. Now, we're also looking at health. We are saying we are going to increase the collection on social health insurance now, removing it from NHIF. So in my view, these are all areas we should touch so that people feel better. I would say you may defer development. If you are doing roads, if you are doing bridges, if you do this big infrastructure, you may now stagger them and say, maybe we'll take 2 years more to get them or start them. In the meantime, let's see how we can increase production by releasing taxes, even the borrowing from locally, how can we reduce that? So whatever we do, people should feel better. If they don't, then whatever we do has no meaning to them.
All right, John Mazu.
Well, cost of living is high, and we generally agree that there is a general problem in the world, beginning with the COVID days, the war in Ukraine, and now the war in the Middle East. But at the same time, when we come back to our own region, we know the prices of fuel in Uganda, I was there recently, is lower than Kenya. And I also recently visited Tanzania at the border. Kenyans are preferring to cross the border and fuel the other side. And therefore, that tells you about the taxes. We have overtaxed the people in terms of fuel. And understand there's even going to be another further 5 shillings increase out of some levy. And therefore, that will put it to 80 plus shillings for taxes on a litre of fuel. And that's where the problem begins, because the moment you overtax, then you impoverish the poorer people, because you know, they cannot even now start their little business. And if you walk to the countryside, there's a lot of problem. I went to the Rift Valley. I've also been to some parts of central Kenya, and I thought the problem was in Ukambani, and I realized it's severe everywhere. So it's not really even an ODM affair. It's an Azimio affair. It's only that ODM is one of our strong partners in Azimio. It's all over the country, and cost of living is high. And that's why you see in the bipartisans, there are conditions put on us by IMF and World Bank. And this is what our neighbors have negotiated. But on our part, we seem to have been slaves of IMF and World Bank. And more important, a lot of monies which is brought here for development, whether from IMF or World Bank, it ends up in mismanagement, misuse, cartels, you know. It never really does the real thing. And if we do a program like we did with the expressway and also the new railway line, you find it was more expensive to do this in Kenya than in other parts of the world. So we are paying all these debts, and then quietly, the debt, you know there are a lot of transactions going on about the debt and even borrowing, which Parliament is not watching, which Senate hasn't been part of. But now we have come up with a law whereby Senate gets briefed also with what is happening with the debts, so that it's not a National Assembly affair. It ends there. Most of the monies which come borrowed, they end up into devolution, part of them. And therefore, we want to be part of it. So that the whole Parliament is dealing with this issue of the debt, so that we can make sure that the debt is properly managed. And again, also, we make sure that when the monies come into the country are not just looted, and then we keep on paying and paying, but we are paying because there's mismanagement and there's stealing. So if Kenya has a lot of money, if there was no corruption, we'll be doing much better, and the economy will not be as bad as it is. I believe it will perform much better. So there is a lot of corruption. There's no strategy with the government to deal with corruption. We only have the old structures which have been there for years. We're not seeing improvement. We have a very good chairman to fight corruption, but the chairman must have structures which stress all the way to the grassroots. Currently, the challenge is if you are a whistleblower, or if you have information in relation to some corruption which has taken place somewhere, many Kenyans don't feel protected to go and give evidence. I know some of them are so annoyed with the corruption, they want to give evidence against corrupt individuals. But their own personal security is a big worry. So we really don't have a proper protection of witness. We had some law which we brought on that, but we really need proper securing of a witness so that they can give evidence against corrupt people, and we can stop the seepage of public funds.
Right. So even as the economy is tanking, we can see a lot of people who have fear and that foreboding fear and trepidation about the old age is the people now who are turning 60, according to the National Population Council, as we can see today in the Star. Because they're saying that the Kenya Population Report was released, of course, where the person above 60 are the fastest growing segment of the population and also the poorest. The report says it places the population at 2,740,000 in 2019. Majority of them are female at 55%. And in Kenya, more than half of the elderly people live in absolute poverty and constitute the poorest age group in the country. The majority of older Kenyans are farmers, and most of them live without modern amenities as well. This particular constituent that needs to be addressed, even as we know it right now, people have the high cost of living to grapple with. We talk of the black tax that people now also, are always greatly shy to embrace, and they want to uncouple themselves from it. Itakuwa kila mtu na shida zake, you carry your own burden. But let's talk about that particular segment a bit, because I think it's an issue that we need to address. Mostly we've been talking about population bulge of the youthful population that we have in the country, but these other elderly persons, their fate is not it's not robustly addressed, despite the fact that we have stipend, which comes in dribs and drabs. It's not really consistent. That you will find this month you will be there, next month you're not sure if it will be there. It can barely take you. If you get 2,000 shillings, that's, we know, first of all, 1,000 shillings is equivalent to 850 shillings, 250 shillings because of inflation. That has pared down on the value of their 1,000 shillings as it is right now. So with the cost of living, how then do we look at this and address this? And I wanted to juxtapose this particular issue also with Archbishop Ole Sapet, who has raised concern and is saying that Kenyans should consider also just giving birth to 2 children. And above that, then that will be something else you need to consider. So giving birth to 2 children, I remember also when we had the Minister of Planning then, who was the ex-governor of Kakamega, Wycliffe Oparanya, also when he was the Minister of Planning, he was mooting that particular issue, that Kenyans should consider giving birth to less children, and 2 children will be the maximum. Why do we have these conversations right now, and how then do we also embrace and look keenly on this particular report by the National Population Council?
Age-wise, let me take the first bite, because if that fear is there, I should let me get I should get if it's okay with that.
Fear of being slighted, fear of being, of course, the sickly issues that come with the territory.
The reality, the ball,
yes,
is that actually and I can say that because I'm getting older now, and I can look back when I was in my 30s and 40s and 50s. Now, actually, you get to realize when one is young, you think it will be there forever. But as you start 50 and getting, or you start realizing, you can actually now count. If you know the life expectancy, you can actually say that if I'm very lucky, I may get to that. So you start to realize. And then you also realize the changes that are taking place in our social structure. A lot of people believed, our parents, rightly so, that their children will look after them. And many of us have actually done. I'm very lucky. Both my parents are still alive. And my father is now very, very old. I think it's over 100. And you see what you are going through. Then you stop and ask, will my children do this for me?
For you, yeah.
And then you look at how their lifestyle is. Many are even moving and living abroad. They are living very far, the old people at the rural areas. Now, then you start seeing people are starting to put up old people's homes. And then you see how they're being run, and they don't look good. And then you even go in developed countries where, like, a lot of our nurses are going to look after old people. And even there, in those arrangements, it's still not very good. Then you say, something is happening, we need to look. I was lucky that when I was in government, this is the thought that had come. And that's how we started the cash transfers, which is 2000. 2000 was designed in 2007.
Until now, it's still 2000, designed in 2007?
Then you also look at other elements of social security. You look at pension system. Our pension system, even if you look at the percentage of what your pension is compared to what you earn, there should be a reasonable relationship between your pension and your earning at the last time you are working, so that you maintain a reasonable lifestyle. The difference is huge. People who are earning maybe 300,000-400,000 shillings are going home with a pension of about 50,000, 60,000, less than 100. How they are going to adjust to that? Now, even our pension system that we put in place, we put NSSF. People put a lot of money there. How much is really coming out? We put retirement benefits authority. Where in other countries, wherever you move, as you move around working, you keep paying to that. and we don't have so people who are living on contract have their gratuities, but they get it when they're young, and that gratuity just goes. It doesn't really go into old age. So I think it's an issue we should look at seriously. Now, if we are scared that age group is growing fast, which means we need more people, and then our response is like Bishop Polisapit, that just have fewer children. Now, then you actually are going to be in a bigger problem. You are going to have a lot of old people with fewer younger people who are working. And Europe is going through that,
yes,
where they actually don't have people to work. So it's an issue that, in my view, we have, we had a social protection policy. I think it was in Parliament. We have tried to put laws. We have not looked at it thoroughly, but I think in the Ministry of Labor and Social Development is something we should look at very, very carefully. We are going to have a large population of old people whose pension cannot support them, whose children maybe are not even able to support them. How are we going to take care of them? Then another things come on top of that. Healthcare. When the people get older, they need more healthcare. Mm-hmm. When you are young, when you are children and you need more healthcare, your parents are still able to take care of you. When you are old and you need more healthcare and there is no state support, that's why we had started, even as far as 2008, that these people who are getting this stipend, should we also pay for their NHIF so that supports them? Good. What we are doing now with the new arrangement in social health insurance, we are actually planning to pay for the indigents, so that will take care of them. So I don't think it is the people who are getting old who should get afraid. At personal level, yes, but I think even the country should think about it seriously, because it's going to be a cost on us, health-wise, their maintenance, and if we respond by not having children, then we also don't have a labor force to do with that. But I think in Africa that is still a long way, but I think it is time to think about it.
And we can see also China is reversing still on its one-child policy. They're imploring women to give more birth to children, especially within a family setup, and incentivizing the women who give birth, and not the single mothers, as they try to put it also in other publications. But I wanted just to say, when we have such a crisis of the old population that cannot really fend for themselves, what does it really portend, especially now with these hard times that we are actually living in? And the demographic crisis that can come out of this, because I think for the most of the times we've really forgotten that particular constituency, and we've concentrated on the young people. But even as we have all these young people who are energetic and robust, the question of the quality of the population of young people also needs to come to bear. Yes, we have that youthful force, but how many are qualified actually to be within the labor market that is within the acceptable threshold when it's looking at the qualifications of this youth? What is the quality of a youth that we are actually putting into the labor force? That is another question, because also we have, the employers have been decrying the fact that they need to retrain some of these youth that also are coming from graduate school. We can try and address this issue, just to speak broadly to this subject, not just navel gazing on the older persons. Continue.
Yeah, I thought I should.
Sure. Yeah, it was you.
You know, the reality is that you see populations must age, and how you treat the old people in society is very critical. There was a study by the Minister of Labor in the Uhuru government, which showed that in Makueni and Ukambani generally, with older populations than many other parts of the country, followed by some sections of the Rift Valley. And the trick is, the older people must be taken care of. They must be protected. You have to do your level best to protect the old, and that's why I don't know the equivalent of the Quran, but the Bible says 70 years. If you get to 80, you are very lucky. So as soon as you hit 50, is even 40. It's like a plane which has now started descending. And you have to descend.
You're on descent.
And that brings the fear. You know, maybe you have not lived your dreams. And now age has caught up with you. You're already 50. Sicknesses are already there. There is bad health care. And therefore, that's why the health care is very important, because when the government comes in to make sure, because many people perish because of diseases which are not taken care of or detected in good time. So there's a role of government, but also a role of family. The family unity is extremely important. If you visit Europe and many other parts of the world, you find that as you age, as you get to those years, you are taken to an old people's home, and probably your children never visit you again. And some will never even know whether you are passed away or not. And it's a most sad thing, but in Africa, that's easy to the practice. In Africa, there is a lot of social protection from the family, from the clan, from the tribe, you know, the way you have settled. And there's always an effort in Africa to make sure that the older person or a parent is really protected. And the young people in Kenya are very keen on that, to do something for their parents. And in fact, that's why a lot of young people work hard so that they can protect their children and they can do something in their families. The most disadvantageous thing now is when the cost of living is high and the young people are jobless and they have no opportunity to create businesses. You know, we need also to change our mindset. The thinking of a common young Kenyan is, I'm working hard to go and get employed. There are very few people thinking, although we have the digital ones, that we can start companies, we can start businesses, we can become contractors. Unfortunately, you become a contractor, then the county government or national government doesn't pay you. Somebody begins a company, and the company works for the government. The company does some work for the government. Then the government doesn't pay the company, and this person has employees. They need a salary. They need to run their lives, and their salary is going on to the village, even to all the older people. So there is a need of government knowing that there is importance in building strong economy. We have mining in the country, which is being done haphazardly, which is being done in a way that we are not utilizing the minerals, which is the wealth of the country. We have agriculture, which can employ a lot of people. You need to invest in all these. So there must be some seriousness. We have, the civil service. We have the army. People join the army, then they get frustrated. You performed very well. You think now you are the hope of your family. When you get to some levels, you are told, sorry, we have to delete you from the system. We don't understand what has happened with this and that, and you crush the hopes. So I think the government should encourage, and even if it's the hiring of jobs, there should be transparency, so that the Kenyans who don't even get the jobs, they know there is hope. They can begin businesses, and their businesses will grow, and they will take care of themselves and the older generation. But poverty, unfortunately, has struck, and that is discouraging the current young generation. No hope. The old generations who are being fed by the young ones. So you find families are living below 100 shillings a day, and there are some families who are not even getting 100 shillings even for a week, and people have become beggars. So I think this story of cost of living is so serious. We have to make a revolution in the minds of Kenyans, so that not one going forward in the future, we fairly distribute the wealth we have. All the wealth should not be just taken to certain regions or where you voted. These so-called companies, these are the kind of talk from leadership which is destroying the nation. We need to build a nation everybody wants to be in. We need to build a nation where everybody wants to be proud of. You want to be proud to be Kenyan. You want to work. And that's why we have a lot of Kenyans going abroad. You saw, just for a few places in the army, 7,000 young Kenyans. 7,000. That's an army by itself. They want to go, they wanted not to join the army. They want to serve their nation. But the opportunity is not there. So we also need to give hope, so that if you don't get to the army or any other civil service job, or police, or prison. In fact, these little jobs, they have supported very many families. You find a prison warder is the biggest person in that family. And he's investing in agriculture, he's buying seeds when the rains come, he's encouraging the family. So we need that nationhood pride, so that we all want to build our nation. But what is happening? Kenyans are going to the UAE, Kenyans are going to the southern part of South Africa, Kenyans are moving to Europe, Kenyans are moving to US, and unless you have good jobs there, you really suffer. And the people at home are waiting for you. So, and also the general attitude. I think a country must work on the general attitude. So that the leadership encourages entrepreneurship, and the leadership gives hope to the nation. But if we are lamenting, and the leadership is lamenting, and the things become harder and harder every day, and the only hope of a family is shot dead carelessly while trying to be in a rally, you know you have impoverished that nation forever, that family forever. Then you don't even take care of the blind, you don't take care of the disabled, you don't take care of we are people who are disabled but very talented in many other ways, extremely brilliant, and even who can do inventions. So I think we really need to build nationhood in this country. We want every single Kenyan to be proud of their government, of their system, of their families, and aspire together. But the current feeling and the climate and the attitude, it is destroying the nation. We need to change our attitude, and that must begin with the current government.
All right.
Dibal, when I listen to my colleagues in the point that you even asked earlier, we are the leaders. What are we doing? Because if we keep on also sounding the same way Kenyans are also sounding, then are we really undertaking our mandate as far as representation is concerned? Because when you keep on saying the government should, it is good to note that as much the issues of the streets as had been mentioned in terms of demonstrations, they started at a point. And that point resorted to what is called bipartisan. Actually, the second phase of bipartisan. The first discussion that you had, which you had not given me an opportunity to respond, and that's why I'm starting from there, Dibal.
Okay.
Yes, it is on the issue of the cost of living. And you realize that the reason that our colleagues from the other side went to the streets was because of the cost of living. And now the headlines today is about ODM stands firm on cost of living. And I ask, what are they doing on table? Which they have a platform as far as bipartisan talks are concerned. Having said that, their main discussion that they want to have is on the cost of living. And if today they would start now again telling Kenyans, they've not been able to get to the bottom of that issue, then it's a clear lie in terms of total representation for the people and what we call personal interest. Because if then their personal interest has not been prioritized, then they bring the discussion of they still having that particular issue rotating in terms of the cost of living and all that. I want to agree, yes, outrightly, the cost of living is high. I don't dispute that. We are coming from a COVID time. We are at a state in terms of the wars that are happening today. Now it's Israel and Pakistan. We've come from the Ukraine war that has been there, which has affected worldwide the fuel, Palestine, yes, Palestine, yes, yeah, and the Israelites, and now the fuel issue, which is a worldwide issue. All costs have gone high. Yes, Uganda could be a bit low compared to Kenya, but the cost also went up high. Now, on the issue of IMF and all that, World Bank, we cannot survive. We have to borrow. Is our credibility okay? It is okay, because our priority has been on debt repayment. National Treasury has prioritized debt repayment. What is needed is different frameworks, favorable agreements of repayment that would be flexible to the conditions that we have, which are not only in Kenya but even in different other countries. There should be different agreements, flexible ones that are not really pressing on the economy where we are, so that Mwananchi is not fully pressed. But we cannot say then we shut down. Then when we shut down, remember when we came in, as we had earlier said, we found a different space in terms of empty coffers. So we had to borrow to be able to ensure that we are able to meet some of these challenges that we were able to realize. But we cannot cut off. Then we cut off, then there will be a challenge moving forward. Then hence we'll be told we've not been able to deliver to Kenyans what is supposed to be done. So they are on table, on the bipartisan. They should be gearing towards not telling us stories of ever going back to the streets, but being able to come to conclusions. We are all Kenyans. I've always said there is no cost of fuel today that is for you, Dibal. There is no cost that is for Honorable Maanzo alone or mine. This cost affects all of us as Kenyans. So it is a collective responsibility. It is not political. It should not be one-sided such that it's an Azimio issue or a Kenya Kwanza. It's a Kenyan issue and it affects all of us. So we should focus on trying to address these issues as Kenyans, and as Kenyan leaders, not just from one side and trying to push everything to the government has done. They are also in government. They are being paid by the same taxpayers' money that you and me and others are paying. So we are all in the same space. And that should be the spirit. That should be the focus. There is also the issue of the digital, and I'm happy the president was able to assent to a bill, the universal healthcare coverage, which is spread across in the different acts. From the digital factor, we have the primary healthcare, the financial improvement, the social healthcare. Now, one thing I'm very happy is that, and as the Constitution clearly stipulates, Article 43, Dibal, it says economic and social rights. Every person has a right to accessible, adequate housing, and to be much more specific on the issue of the health. A person shall not be denied emergency health treatment. 43.2. And this is very critical. You realize when we've had and we've seen accidents happening or there's an emergency, it is in our constitution that Kenyans should be allowed to access emergency treatment. That has not been happening because you realize when you go to, especially a government hospital, the first thing the management asks is that who's going to take care of the bill. The person is not being prioritized for treatment as required by the Constitution. And that's why the bill, which was assented by the president, clearly now gives an opportunity to any Kenyan to have an emergency treatment in that event, if that occurs. Unlike previously, whereby, as I said earlier, you have to really have your person, your next of kin, to be able to be there for you. And I'm seeing that our colleagues are yes, they are okay with it, but they're not really pronouncing it that it is an okay thing, because when we talk about the 43.2 in terms of the emergency access during medical treatment, it is for all of us. It is not catering to a different culture group or a different set of class. It is for all of us Kenyans. Number two, this bill is taking care such that if surely honorable member's salary is on a certain scale, what they pay is different from what a lower cadre mwananchi is paying, so that now the rich can be able to ensure that they are able to contribute for the poor who are not in a position to be able to manage those particular costs. The other issue is on the older age. We've been able to have the program called the Inua Jamii program, which has there has been a disbursement of over 2 billion for over 1 million elderly Kenyans who are receiving the 2,000 Kenya shillings. We are somewhere, and as a government, we have been able, as Kenya Kwanza, we've been able to ensure that has been executed. Is it enough? It is not enough at the moment. Is it possible to increase? It's not possible at the moment. Why? Because of the costs that are in place, the expenses that are in place, the debt issues that are in place. At the moment, that is what is there. What is important to note is that at least that has been executed, that has been given to the elder Kenyans. The question of the young people, and of course I fall in that bracket, and I want to agree with my colleagues, because the kind of generation that is there today, it's a very worrying generation. One, you find that even when job opportunities are in place, and as I said earlier, I'm a CEO in my own capacity. I run a manufacturing firm, and we've come across, even sometimes when employment opportunities are there, both in the private sector and at times in the public sector, the presentation is worrying. It is not like how it used to be in our old age. I've even stated that we could even borrow our elders, even shoes, even decent clothing to wear, to be able even to attend an interview. The respect that you give a job opportunity, so that you can be able to bargain for your own space. Because they always say, the experts in the interview industry, they always say your first impression matters. That effort is not there. People are walking in with the headphones, headgears. It's a generation of, you know, yes, I'm in the digital and I advocate for digital literacy, but that presentation matters. The papers, we have so many people with degrees, we have even so many people with the master's level and all that. But when it comes to execution of our generation, they do not want to go the extra mile to work hard. An 8 to 5 job is a challenge. You know, there's so much laxity.
Amen.
The generation that is there,
I even said amen.
the lifestyle issue, it is very
enough.
worrying. I can tell you, we nowadays, and something that we were actually the other day during Mashuda Day, we complained and said as leaders, especially in Nairobi, let us not have clubs and bars within the schools, within the institutions. That should be a bit distance. Now we are having in the estates whereby we have these clubs that are just there. People are drinking from Monday to Sunday, and actually Sunday is when the business is booming. And in the old previous times, whereby at least Sunday used to be a family and a church time.
We need to go.
You know, but I want to emphasize and urge the youth to try and ensure that they are working on their savings, they are working hard in the spaces that they are, because the way life is going to be, it's not the way it used to be in the old age. And as we finish, allow me to wish all the candidates in this country success in their exams.
Thank you. All right, let's just get to 10 seconds. The closing remarks here, because time is not really on my side.
Let me first of all say we welcome the King and the Queen and the country. Kenya is a welcoming country. Their gesture to come to Kenya is going to bring in confidence, tourism industry, and I'm sure they're going to enjoy the warm climate in Kenya. And then thank, Princess Anne very much for taking me to school together with $15,000. That was a big effort. She may not know, but she changed lives of very, very many people. And that was done by the first family, because that's what she first, started to fundraise. And Started Boys Center is still there. We, the old boys, are supporting it, and we look forward to a bigger support from the rest of the world, so that we can have such other people grow up to be useful to the nation.
Thank you. Daktari.
Whatever we do, we really must look at the cost of living. And I say the debt issue, I earlier mentioned structural adjustment, but I actually meant debt restructuring, so that we don't have to insist on paying now, can pay later. We must look at taxes, particularly the taxes on energy. And we must look at governance, so that the Kenya Kwanza must focus not on politics, but on governance, so that is the only way we can look at the cost of living.
I can't. No, I can't. We have to go. I give you a closing remarks.
I continue.
We're on the clock. We're on the clock. Thank you so much, Senator Tabitha Mutinda. Thank you for your valid company. And also Dr. James Chikal, thank you for also your contribution as well. Also, Dan Mazo, thank you for your time. Right? I wanted to raise the questions regarding also Godabura in Suba. The students there here, they've actually really reprimanded the principal because the porridge didn't have sugar, right? So, but it's still about administration. That's your high school? Oh, it wasn't your high school. Right.